just died on me and I couldn't hear Liz anymore. And so I had to go get fancy giveaway headphones to make it through. So, we make it work. I think it's very pandemic-y, right? Is that pandemic-esque? That's not a good, there's no real words. And that's actually apropos because the story we're going to talk about is all about the words of the pandemic and how much we want to flush them down the drain. Right, Liz?
Totally. Yes, absolutely.
For those of you joining us, rejoining us, chime in, let us know where you are coming from, which social media channel. I believe we should be on Twitter, on YouTube, and on Facebook. Let us know which one you're on and let us know where you're coming to us from. We are going to be recording 2 episodes of Money with Friends. We kind of stopped one in the middle because of technical problems, but we expect to get through the next 2 very smoothly. And so I'm going to and by the way, we'll take your questions and comments as we go through the show. So have them ready. We have great topics today. And I will make sure to monitor your chats because sometimes I'm not the best at that, but I am monitoring your chatting. And now I'm recording. All right. This is our second attempt at recording Money with Friends for Tuesday, December 8th. Here we go. 2020 is winding down. What would you flush away? We've got answers with our co-host Liz Segran, author of The Rocket Years and Fast Company journalist, to talk toilet paper. I kid you not, it is Tuesday, December 8th. Let's talk money with our friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast. I am certified financial planner, Bobbi Rebell, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast, coming to you from my very grown-up kitchen in New York City.
And I am Elizabeth Segran. I am a senior staff writer at Fast Company magazine, and I'm coming to you from my beautiful, airy loft office here in Boston.
It does look very beautiful and airy, Liz. Here on Money with Friends, we talk about the latest personal finance headlines. We add in the insights and the wisdom of our fantastic cast of thought leaders, including author of The Rocket Years, Elizabeth Segran. We mix in questions and comments from our money friends, and then we leave you with a takeaway to make it your own. Liz, welcome back. You are a veteran now. This is your 5th episode.
Yes, thank you so much for having me back.
And you are looking stunning in a purple sweater. We record this live on YouTube. Everyone should join us on the Money with Friends YouTube channel to be part of the show and see us as well as hear us. And I wanted to ask you where you got it so I could pick one up. And in fact, it is one of a kind.
Totally. Just like everybody else, I picked up a quarantine habit, which is knitting. And it was actually bolstered by the research I did in my book, which is called The Rocket Years, How Your 20s Launch the Rest of Your Life. And there's actually all of this fascinating data about how people with hobbies are just happier in life. They're more productive at their jobs. They're more intellectually engaged and passionate about life. And I was like, you know what? I need to get myself a hobby. So I started knitting and knit a lot of hats and and scarves, which are going to be holiday presents. And then I wanted to take on a challenge. So I knit a sweater, which turned out to be 5 sizes too small. So I gave that to my 5-year-old daughter who is rocking it. And I just figured out how to make a sweater my size. And here it is. And the other thing that I love about this sweater is that the name of the color of the sweater is wine, which is another one of my quarantine hobbies.
Oh my gosh. I know. And that brings us to things like Zoom happy hours. That just came to me. All of these sort of pandemic habits and phrases that have become part of our world. Mm-hmm. We're going to be talking about that. Very, very interesting way to kind of flush away 2020. First, let's see which one of our friends is going to bring us into the headline. All right, so this headline comes to us from the Detroit Free Press by Miriam Marini. 2020 has been going down the drain, and now you can actually flush it away. And I'm just going to summarize quickly, because we want to get to these phrases, what the piece is about. The company American Standard is doing a giveaway, and basically they're going to give away toilet paper featuring the worst of what 2020 has had to offer us. They did a survey, and they identified they asked people to identify one thing from this year that they wish they could flush down the drain. And, they sort of joke about that this was the year that, really this kind of was a standout thing. But they, in all seriousness, we want to flush the turmoil down the toilet and start the year with a fresh, clean start. Obviously, the majority of people, 87%, said they wish they could leave the coronavirus in the dust, the phrase new normal along with it. And then here is a list of 2020's most flushable moments. I guess we'll go through that together, Liz, and we can comment on each one. And our audience that's joining us, of course, is welcome to comment as well. We record this live on YouTube on the Money with Friends YouTube channel if people want to join us here. The first one, of course, as I mentioned, is COVID-19 at 87%. Not a surprise, Liz.
Totally. I mean, my daughter is 5, and whenever there are questions about like what she wants to move past from or what she's hoping for in the future, she always says no COVID and no coronavirus. So I think it's penetrated into the culture. The toddlers are against the pandemic as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like that phrase we always hear about your grandparents said, I had to walk, so many miles to school and it was uphill both ways. Our children are going to say, you don't have to deal with COVID-19 and all this homeschooling stuff. The next one, far behind it, is the phrase new normal at 49%, which actually makes no sense. There's no such thing as a new normal. It's contradictory in and of itself.
Totally. I was talking to a friend the other day, and I brought up the term unprecedented, and he said, "Oh, I hate that word. It's become such a dirty word now. This idea that we're gonna have to like change everything about who we are and how we live. Yeah, we're all sick of it."
Yeah, like unprecedented, and like you said, and like they always say the new in these uncertain times or in these challenging times. And that was in every ad I felt at the beginning of the pandemic. And it's like, okay, we know that. Thanks for telling us once again.
At the beginning, we kind of like helped us. I don't know. It was trying to contextualize where we are, but like 9 months into it, it's almost like triggering. It's like, oh, don't remind us that we're in this terrible moment,
Yeah, I mean, I think these words are triggering, right? So again, canceled vacations, which of course could apply to canceled weddings, canceled parties. You had your daughter's birthday party. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it was yesterday. She just turned 5, and yeah, I mean, I had a total meltdown the night before because when you're 5, a birthday is like everything, and she couldn't have friends over. It was, we ended up making it really special for her, and I think it's going to be extra memorable, but. People have had weddings that have been canceled, right? These are life events. These are milestones that you're not going to get back.
Yeah. And not to mention, of course, the industries built around them, which you may have different feelings about these industries, but there are people that have jobs and their businesses have been destroyed.
Totally. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that goes along with, virtual everything, which is, conferences, book tours, maybe. Mm-hmm. I mean, everything is virtual. And at a certain point, people just don't want to get on the Zoom call anymore. I mean, all these virtual conferences, it's not the same.
Yeah. And weirdly, in this year, I've been working from home for a long time. I do a lot of my interviews on the phone. And this year, because everybody is shifted to Zoom, a lot of my interviews, people are requesting to do them by video. And I just find them so much more exhausting than just doing it over the phone, because there's all of this like visual feedback. You're not making eye contact with a person, but you have to follow their face on a screen. I'm over it.
Yeah, I would agree completely. This one is technically not, it's not coronavirus related. Murder hornets. That's another thing that was just like a fun thing thrown in there for us this year.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like apocalyptic, right? Everything that could possibly go with the election and with this, everything.
Well, and people were saying, at the beginning of 2020, we were worried about the fires in Australia, which we are absolutely still, that's very important, of course, and that's tragic. And oh my God, the pictures of the koalas. Who knew what else was coming?
Well, and then we lost a lot of people this year on top of everything, like basically there have been so many people who have lost. We don't have to go through them all right now, but it's like everything. This was a terrible, terrible, horrible, miserable year.
Oh, nasal swabs.
Mm-hmm.
30% said nasal swabs. I mean, my son at age 13 has had so many COVID tests to
Oh,
attend.
really?
He's on his ninth day of school so far because they're constantly testing the kids, which is kind of ironic because of the schools. They're testing the kids, at least for in our experience, more than the adults because they're testing the kids to be able to go into school. And then somebody doesn't get a good test result, and then they're shut down again. So it's
Yeah.
really frustrating. So he's so used to he hates these nasal swab tests. He's like over it.
I haven't actually had a single COVID test because I live in my my loft office. I haven't left it, and I have like I have an elliptical machine here. I'm like fully self-sufficient from my bunker right here. So I haven't had to do that. But my husband is a professor at Harvard, and they have like a very extensive testing regime there, and everybody's getting tested multiple times a week. So yeah, it's either you're getting it all the time, or you're just like me and you just haven't seen a person in like 9 months.
Yeah, I've had it twice, but they were for purposes. Like I
Mm-hmm.
had a medical procedure, and so they make you get tested before that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
but nothing like my son. I mean, he's just a pro at it. All right, missed parties at 24%. Of course, your daughter's
Yeah.
birthday party didn't happen. My son's
Mm-hmm.
bar mitzvah has not happened yet. So many parties that have just
Totally.
not happened. And I
Yeah.
would say 90% were really sad. But is there a little part of you, Liz, that's like a little bit relieved to have all that sort of free time on your calendar this year?
Yeah, I would say that, when I saw all of this, there are many things about 2020 that have been terrible and that I don't want to have to deal with. But honestly, like, yeah, there have been some things that have been quite nice, including Thanksgiving. This year the three of us, my husband and my daughter and I just stayed here. Granted, I'm not actually American, and so I didn't. Thanksgiving wasn't a big holiday for me growing up. But I was really nice not to travel and just to have 4 days to be at home and do things as a family. There are some things that I think are really nice, but only because we can see an end in sight. Like it's just an anomalous, like special thing, and eventually we're going to get back to normal. I think that's how I'm feeling about it. The reason we can celebrate the good things is because we know that this is not going to be life forever, right?
Have you had moments when you feel like it's life forever?
At the beginning, I think people had no idea when it was going to be over. And I honestly, I think I was feeling depressed. I don't think I had the words for it at the time, but I was feeling depressed because I thought this was going to be, I thought this was going to be our life for like 7 years. Because if we didn't have I mean, it's amazing that the vaccines have been so effective, but I think everybody was really surprised by that. I think people thought that maybe the vaccines weren't going to work and that some version of this was going to be, part of our life for a really long time. But I think now that there is an end in sight, I think we can start planning and we can start enjoying the good things, and sort of like, flushing the bad things down the toilet, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's a balance because we're all a little bummed about various things. But yet, with the vaccine, I feel like that's giving us a little hope as we turn into the new year. We record this in front of a live audience on Facebook and YouTube. Everyone, definitely, as I've said, please join us on YouTube on the Money with Friends channel. We have Sarah here with a comment.
Yeah. Yeah. She talks about how she's really bummed that her son won't get to spend his senior year in high school with his friends. And he has a good attitude about it, and it makes her a little sad. And Sarah, I'm totally with you. I actually launched a book right at the start of COVID in March called The Rocket Years: How Your 20s Launch the Rest of Your Life. And it's really about the big decisions that we make in our 20s and how they play out throughout our lives. And we launched it at that time because it was supposed to be ready for the graduation season, right? The high school and college graduation season. And everything got disrupted because nobody was able to have graduations last year. And that's one thing. And, I talked to so many young people during that time. I did a lot of virtual events. And these are the kinds of things that you just kind of don't get back, right? Like it's an exceptional period in a person's life. And it's such a valuable and important time, as they transition from one phase of life to another. And you don't really get those moments back, right? Like travel will come back, you can have a sixth birthday party and all of that. But like graduation, that's a special moment. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable for us all to be mourning the loss of the things that we don't get back.
Yeah, I completely agree. One thing we will not miss for sure, although it seems to not be going away so fast, is the expression "you're on mute." How many times has that happened to you? Even almost, we had a little glitch recording this, and I didn't know what was going on, and I didn't know if you accidentally muted yourself. I mean, it's like constant, really.
Totally. For me, that hasn't happened to me, but I always have this anxiety now that like my video is on when I don't want it to be on, or that I'm somehow on a Zoom call, or that whatever. There's always this anxiety that like I'm somehow getting filmed. It's just constant, even when like my computers are not on, right? It's like, am I on video when I'm not supposed to be? Like,
Well, and there have been some incidents of people being on video when they have thought they have not, that have had
yes.
major repercussions, and people can go Google
Hello.
that kind of stuff. But
Hello,
yeah.
Jeffrey Tubin. But yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think those moments like really just like create anxiety, right? Where it's like, we're on video all the time now, all day, in our homes, in our private spaces, right? And so it's like, oh, did I leave my Zoom on and like, and like, are they watching me like, like, I don't know, taking a nap back there? Like, I don't know.
I know exactly. And it's become so much of a part of our culture that I feel like I used to really like try and get all dressed up all the time. And now, I'll just do Instagram lives. And, my husband said to me the other day, he's like, could you even just put on some makeup or a filter or something? He's like, the bags under your eyes are showing. You look awful. And I'm like, oh, I do. But
It's just so tight.
it's so much. I just can't anymore. It just becomes exhausting.
I know.
Oh.
I've had to literally buy makeup this year because of all the Zoom calls. Like I usually don't, because I'm at home usually in my office. Like I don't usually have to be seen by anyone. And now we're on show
yeah,
all the
we
time.
are. Yeah, ironically, we're kind of seen more.
We're like reality TV stars now, right? There's like cameras on us all the time, which really sucks.
Well, and it's been interesting because you do see into people's sort of into their private lives a little bit, even though people can put the camera in the corner and this and that, you do sometimes get a window into how your colleagues live.
I know. And like I think I'm fortunate, like, we have a home where we live in the suburbs, right? So we don't live in a tiny, tiny space. And so I have a dedicated space to do this. But, my husband is a professor. And so he's doing these Zoom calls with his students all the time. And it's hard because, in a classroom, at university, you don't have to be vulnerable about like your roots and your origins and what your house looks like, right? Whereas now, he's doing these calls with people, and it's like you're seeing the huge discrepancies between some people who, are like vacationing with their boyfriends in Hawaii to wait out the quarantine, and other people who are like sharing a room with like two siblings and working part-time because their parents lost their job, and there's so much, it's so vulnerable, right? Having to show all of that when you're supposed to not have to experience that on campus. Everybody's supposed to feel like they're sort of equal, right? Like in a classroom. It's really hard.
Yeah. And that's, I think, an ongoing theme that deserves more attention. Maybe we'll be able to circle back to that on this show, because I do think that this has been a real awakening of what we don't see under the surface when people all attend the same college, but there's a lot going on underneath the surface in terms of economic disparity. But in the interest of this show, to get back on track, let's talk about, so apropos for you, birthday caravans. You chose not to do this for your daughter who just turned 5 this past weekend. Your thoughts, did that come up, the idea of a birthday caravan? I mean, I guess we should explain what it is to some people that don't know what it is.
So there are all these people who are trying to come up with creative ways to celebrate their children's birthdays. And one of them is that their child will sit on their porch, and then, friends will drive by and honk and stuff like that. As I've mentioned, like I totally had a meltdown so my daughter turned 5 on Saturday, and I just had a meltdown on Friday night. Like it was midnight, and I started crying with my husband, and I was like, this is a birthday means everything to a 5-year-old, right? Like they look forward to it the whole year. They read books about it. And then she wouldn't have a party. And so anyway, what we ended up doing was, my husband like woke up the next day, went to Party City, bought the whole store, and like brought everything to the house, and there were balloons everywhere. And And that made a big difference, right? When you're 5, like all of that is just such a big deal. And then she asked whether our neighbors could come round while she did a piñata, while she hit the piñata. And our neighbors are like in their 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? So there are no kids in our neighborhood, but she's friends with these people, right? She sees them all the time, and they came by and they watched her, and we all had some cake, and they were all socially distant. But yeah, it's like we have to get creative about this stuff, right? Because what are you supposed to do?
I know, exactly. I mean, I'm at a loss. I have a 13-year-old, so it wasn't as big a deal. He basically was very happy to have a virtual birthday party playing video games with his friends. But in past years, the past couple of years, he's had a bunch of buddies over sitting on the couch, and he did ask for that. And I had to say no, and I confirmed with the other parents that we just weren't going to do that in June. So that's a bummer. And it wasn't something we could really do outside. And even another child, they wanted to do something outside. And at that time, the parents were just not open to that. It was much earlier in the pandemic. We didn't have such a good understanding of how things were spread. So
Right.
yeah, let's flush birthday caravans down the toilet. Just to clue you guys in, if you are interested in learning more about this, it's American Standard. They're going to be giving away 450 customized Flush 2020 toilet paper rolls away for a limited time. And you can go to the American Standard website to enter, and they're going to choose the winners in about a week from when this episode goes out, which is December 14th. I did enter. Liz will be entering. So good luck to everyone in winning. I will keep you guys posted if I win one of them, but I'm crossing my fingers. We're going to get to our takeaways and maybe share some phrases that we would like to flush away for 2020. But first, I just want to remind everybody as we get towards New Year's that keeping track of your money is really as important, maybe more important than actually earning it. One thing that I do to keep track of my money is FreshBooks. I used it even before I started my business while I was still working as a TV anchor at Reuters. And it's been great. It's super easy to manage your money. If you have a business, you can invoice your clients. And they have ways, by the way, where you can get paid even faster. It connects right to your bank accounts. It tracks everything. It makes tax time super easy. If you want to find out more about it, you go to moneywithfriendspodcast.com/FreshBooks. And here's the really good news. FreshBook plans are now 70% off for the first 3 months if you go right into it. You skip the 30-day free trial period. Go to moneywithfriendspodcast.com/FreshBooks for more information. And I've really enjoyed using it, so I recommend it personally. Check it out and see if it works for you. All right, Liz, what is your takeaway from this? And maybe some phrases that you want to flush away from 2020?
I want to flush away sweatpants. Now,
Yes.
let me just tell you, I love sweatpants. I have been living in them. I'm currently wearing a version of sweatpants right now. As you can see, they're leggings.
Those are lovely.
They're very nice. They have a snake skin print on them, but I'm just, I kind of miss wearing real clothes. I'm wearing real clothes right now with you because you can see me. But, most days I'm just, I'm in sweatpants or no pants at all sometimes, right? And it's like, I just want to be wearing, I have a whole closet full of clothes that I love, right? And there's no reason to wear them now. So I'm ready to start wearing clothes again.
That's an excellent answer. So yeah, and I would add to that loungewear, leisure wear, all that kind of stuff. Definitely. Okay. Any other takeaways though from the article? I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, totally. So I think that the main thing here is we should definitely flush away all of the things that have been problematic about this year. But I would say that, there are some things that we've done this year that I think are good, right? And like we've learned some things, right? I think many of us have figured out self-care. We've clarified things that really, really matter to us. We've picked up some good habits. I think like a lot of us are taking more walks. I picked up knitting and other hobbies. So I think with all the stuff that we want to flush away, I think there's some things that maybe we want to hold on to. And I think it'll be really easy to lose touch with these good things once life returns to normal. So I think it might be worth holding on to the good.
Yeah, I think those are excellent reminders. Some phrases that I think were left out. And maybe these are too obvious. Obviously, social distancing, screen time, pods. Are you in a pod? Is your family in a pod, Liz?
No, it's just the three of us. We're not doing pop.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're not
So
doing the
it's
pod. Yeah,
bad.
we didn't do a pod. Yeah. But a lot of people did pods,
Mhm.
which I'm not sure how protective they are because you just need one little leak in the pod and, who knows what could happen. My top one is remote learning because really the kids, with a few exceptions, are just not learning when they are learning remotely. And I'm curious if our listeners want to write into us. Just DM us on our Instagram channel at Money Friends Pod and let us know, do you think remote learning is learning? Because I don't. So I think we can just flush that phrase away. Hopefully it will be gone soon when we get this vaccine into widespread use. I don't know what the right phrasing is of that. Liz, this has been wonderful. You're going to be back tomorrow. We're going to be talking about the book business and some things a lot of people don't really know that you become aware of when you were an author, but they might be changing. Tell us, though, in the meantime, where people can be in touch with you and learn more about the Rocket Years.
Totally. So you can find me at Liz Segran, LIZSEGRAN, on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff. And you can find my book, The Rocket Years: How Your 20s Launch the Rest of Your Life, anywhere anywhere books are found, including Amazon. But I would recommend, if you're interested in buying it, try and buy it from your local bookstore because it's likely suffering right now.
Yes, and you can also go on my website. I have a link to Liz because she was on the Financial Grown Up website, and we're working with Bookshop, which links to independent booksellers. So you can do that way, or just go to Bookshop, and that will point your order to a local retailer. Liz, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you back tomorrow.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to be here again.
All right. Thank you, our small but mighty audience, for chiming in. We're going to do our next show now, which is going to be out on Wednesday. Let me just get ready. Oh, it seems I did not write a open. Hold on just one second. Let me think of something that we will say. The book business is... It's really not the whole book business. It's really the biggest book retailer. Book retailer. Okay. How's that for on the fly? So you guys get a real behind the scenes look. That's what happens. We also, there's no phrase for this, but I just have ongoing, everyone knows I have the worst procrastination. And so I did not write that intro. Okay, here we go. This is going to be the Money with Friends podcast for Wednesday, December 9th. Here we go. The biggest brick and mortar book retailer, Barnes & Noble, making big changes that could impact what and how we all read. We're going to get into it with the Rocket Years author and our co-host today, Liz Segran. It is Wednesday, December 9th. Let's talk money with our friends. Welcome to the Money with Friends podcast. I am certified financial planner, Bobby Rebell, host of the Financial Grown Up podcast, coming to you from my very grown up New York City kitchen.
And I'm Liz Segran. I am the author of The Rocket Years: How Your 20s Launch the Rest of Your Life, and a senior staff writer at Fast Company magazine. I'm coming to you from my airy attic office here outside of Boston.
Oh, we're all so jealous. It's a beautiful space. Here on Money with Friends, we talk about the latest personal finance headlines, add in the insights and wisdom of our fantastic cast of thought leaders like Rocket Years author Liz Segran. We mix in questions and comments from our money friends, and we leave you with a takeaway to make it your own. And Liz, I should also mention that you are a writer for Fast Company, and you also contribute to a number of other publications. What's been going on with all of your writing?
Oh, it's been wonderful, actually. I've been able to, at the beginning of the crisis, everything was all COVID focused. I was writing a ton of stories about masks and about, about like the latest information we had about COVID. And it was just a lot, right? But I think what's really nice is that we are our minds are now able to process more than the immediate crisis, and we're beginning to think about the future. And I think that that's wonderful, because there are all of these like really fascinating questions, like, is the world going to become more sustainable after this pandemic, right? Are we going to change our behaviors in profound ways? Are we going to understand what really matters in society, like essential workers? Are we going to pay them more? There are all of these really important, fascinating questions, I think, that are looming ahead of us. And I think now we have the ability to sort of take them on. And I'm writing a ton of stories about kind of the future.
Yeah, I mean, we definitely have a change in mindset about what we prioritize and how we approach things. And I think, given that, I'm not surprised that you wanted to talk about this story
Mm-hmm.
from the, I think it's from the Wall Street Journal that
Mm-hmm.
we are going to be highlighting. Let's first see which one of our friends is going to bring us into that story. All right. The headline reads, Barnes & Noble's new boss tries to save the chain and traditional bookselling. The struggling bookseller has laid off once powerful managers and overturned relationships with publishers in favor of a more local approach. And I believe this is written by Jeffrey Trachtenberg. I didn't have that written down, but I'm pretty sure that's who it
It
is.
is.
Great
That's
writer.
right.
Yeah, he's awesome. Okay, and the story, just to summarize it, basically it talks about the relatively new CEO, James Dawn, and how he's changing the strategy that has really made them so successful years ago, but now kind of tweaking it and kind of taking a more localized approach, because the way these bookstores worked is that the headquarters would kind of decide what everybody was getting, and maybe the local store owner knew, or manager of the local Barnes and Noble kind of knew his audience was really into one book but was never going to be buying the other book, but they all got what the bosses at the headquarters said, so they didn't have much leverage to change anything. And there also is a system which can be good for some authors but very hard for some other authors, where publishers, through various means, sometimes outright paying, but often just leverage of the fact that they have a lot of power because they have the top books, would manage to get the prominent placement in the brick and mortar store, in the brick and mortar stores. And that would, of course, influence what people saw, what was highlighted when they walked into these bookstores, and would influence what they chose to read. And so this kind of shakes that up a little, right, Liz?
Yeah, totally. And actually, I think that an important point here is that this is actually happening throughout the retail industry. Um, I spent a lot of time studying the retail sector. It's one of the beats that I follow. And it's been interesting how over the last couple of years, Nordstrom and Sephora, which are large companies that have been used to having these very large footprint stores, have been shifting and moving to smaller neighborhood stores where there's a smaller footprint and where the experience is very localized. And I think that part of it has to do with the product assortment there, like you're saying, but I think part of it also just has to do with creating a kind of more community vibe where local authors might be brought in, or, you have, very, very sort of like, it's more about the kind of the local community as well, and making it a place that people will want to stop by and come to in their neighborhood. And I think that strategy was working really well. I think the problem is that with COVID, there's just been this like major shakeup in retail. A lot of stores shuttered for a significant amount of time, early in the pandemic. And so that means that it's really hard for us to understand what the future is going to be, right? Because this was such an exceptional year. But I think the transition had been happening where, people didn't want to go to big malls and big box stores that all looked the same, right? They wanted an experience that felt like they were going to their neighborhood. And so anyway, it's been happening across the retail sector.
So it was already happening to a large degree. How much do you think COVID-19 maybe accelerated this trend?
I think that a lot of the malls, as we've known, have already sort of been dying, right? Particularly second and third tier malls that were sort of like these big complexes, which had maybe a couple of flagship stores, like maybe there was like a Macy's in there, a J.C. Penney, and a bunch of other stores. But I think for a while, those malls have just not been innovating very much. They haven't been, fun, exciting places. They've sort of like lost their appeal. And when people can buy everything online, there's no point in going to sort of like a boring, dull, poorly lit mall. Like it stopped having a purpose in society. On the other hand, there had been this desire for people to sort of like take walks in their neighborhood close to where they live, where they can maybe bump into a neighbor. That had been happening, right? And I think that what's going on with COVID is that the COVID is going to basically like be the last blow to the dying mall and the dying, megaplex store. I think that's for sure. The question is whether, as COVID, passes, whether there's going to be a revitalization of Main Street, right? Like the little neighborhoods that we live in, whether there's going to be government funding, whether companies are going to be willing to invest in these smaller, stores. I think that's left, we still don't know what the recovery is going to look like. But I think that's what I think consumers have desired that for a long time. Like, basically it's really interesting. The malls basically emerged like about 50 years ago after the war. And before that, everybody had Main Street, right? They lived in their neighborhoods. They just went to their little town. There were a couple of stores there. And it seems like that's where we're going back to. We're basically kind of going back to the future, right?
Liz, I saw an interview recently with somebody, I believe it was on Small Business Saturday, and it was a small business owner saying everyone talks about supporting small businesses, but when it comes down to it, they're ordering on Amazon or they're ordering from another store or they're popping into a large retailer like a Best Buy or whatever it may be, or Target. Do you think that people say that, and then when it comes down to their own personal choices at the end of the day, the easiest thing is to take out their phone and just click buy now?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. And I think that when it comes down to it, consumers are still very money and value driven. They're very price and value driven, right? But here's the thing, like the Main Street stores that are doing well are the ones that offer more than just a transaction. And so what do stores offer that you can't get online, right? And what they offer is a fun experience, entertainment, really, right? Like I am willing to spend more on a product, if I can go into the store and discover new products for the first time, and they're displayed in a beautiful way, and I can take my daughter there on a Saturday, and it's a fun experience for the whole family. In that case, I'm totally willing to spend a little bit more, right? Because it was really wonderful. Or if the store offers some other thing, right? Like a community event, like, we're talking about Barnes and Nobles here, right? I would be willing to go to my local Barnes and Noble store if they had like a cocktail hour or a fun event for kids, right? Those are the kinds of things that little stores can offer that will make it worth it. And there's also other trends that are happening. I think consumers really, really want to be able to get their products quickly. So if there's a way to order a product online, be able to pick it up in your local store very quickly. But then because you're going to that local store, they pull you in by like having a coffee shop there or some other thing. That's going to be the future, right? It's going to be being able to have the online experience, but also going into the store for things that don't have anything to do with the immediate act of transaction, right? It's got to be something else that will, allow you to have a good experience in that store.
Yeah, before we run out of time, you brought it back to Barnes and Noble. One of the things talked about in this Wall Street Journal article is the challenge of staffing, because if you want to give the power to these local stores to select what books, or if it's clothing store, what clothing to highlight, they talk about the fact that, quote, having a teenager trying to shelve American history. So that's a challenge for a lot of these stores, is that you can't just hire someone that's not familiar with what you are selling. And especially for a bookstore, if you want to have that expertise, that might change the way that they staff the stores. And it's not always easy to find that person at what is often a minimum wage job. And that's that's part of the challenge, is if you're going to give the power to the local stores in a big chain, how do you then make sure those people can make those decisions? There's a reason many of those decisions were centralized, beyond the fact that, the shipping and the logistics were easier. It also avoided having the wrong, you don't have a situation where at a clothing store that's part of a chain, somebody who doesn't have the fashion sensibility that the brand wants to have doesn't put together a window display that is not on brand. I remember when I worked at a clothing store that was part of a chain in college, we would get very specific directions of exactly how the window should look. And that's why every single, Ann Taylor Loft, every single Gap, every single Banana Republic looks exactly the same in the window display. I mean, one mannequin might be placed slightly differently, but they really look very uniform because they're being sent these directions so they don't mess up.
Yeah, I think that it's interesting because there was a time in American history when a retail job was a really solidly middle class job where you could support a family on it, and it was because it required a certain level of skill, right, and knowledge of your audience and knowledge of the product. And as these malls have just become these or these big box stores have just become carbon copies of one another. I mean, as you're saying, one reason that they did that was because it was cheaper, right? And everything was cheaper, right? You could just centralize everything and then distribute it, and you could just hire people who didn't need a brain to just kind of follow the instructions. And I think that hopefully one good thing from this shift is that there's going to be an understanding that you need to hire well-skilled, well-trained people who can make decisions about the local, about what the local community will want, right, in that particular store. And I think, more broadly, coming out of this pandemic, we'll realize that these people are essential workers, right? Like people who work in our stores, people who help the local economy thrive, right? These are people worth paying. And so I think hopefully the desire for highly specialized retail workers who make the experience so much better for the consumer, coupled with a renewed understanding of how important retail workers are to society, those things together will result in better wages for these very important people in our communities.
Yeah, I do think there's, and I hope this continues on, a new sense of appreciation for the hard work that these frontline workers, frontline even in our retail,
Totally.
do give to us, and I hope that continues beyond the pandemic. We're seeing them in a different way, which I think is really important. Before we get to our takeaways, I do want to take a moment to talk to everybody about the new year and new ways about how to invest. We had a great year if you were invested in stocks, and that's wonderful. But you may be thinking, how can I diversify so that I don't have everything dependent only on the stock market, especially when the truth is a lot of things like fixed income that we've normally gone to are really not providing much of a return. So it's been tough. You can't, and frankly, the truth is we can't control where the markets are going to be. One thing that a lot of very wealthy people do is they control their risk by investing in different areas. And one area is blue chip art, totally unaffordable to you and I. But there is now a new way to get into the art market, and that is Masterworks. You can learn more about it at masterworks.io. But basically, what they do is they have experts that create a custom portfolio to meet our investment needs. You don't have to really do anything. They put it together. You basically are investing in a fraction of a piece of the art, and that way it is a fraction of the cost to you. You do have to have some qualifications, so you can learn more about that at masterworks.io. And they will give you more information. If you sign up with a promo code MWF, you can skip the huge, it's 25,000 person wait list. So again, that is masterworks.io. Make sure to use the code MWF and also learn more about the risks in their disclaimer area. You can get to that by masterworks.io/disclaimer, but definitely make sure to use our MWF code if you do go to learn more about Masterworks. Liz, it is time for takeaways. Your thoughts? You're not hearing me? Okay, I am not hearing you. Let me see if I can fix that. Let me try again. Do you hear me? Okay, I'm not sure what's going on, but let me try again. We can edit this little part out. Liz, do you hear me now? Okay, you hear me. All right. I am not hearing you. I'm not sure why. We had a little glitch before. I don't know if our audience, can you guys hear me? Oh no. I am not on mute, but that's interesting, Sarah, that you said that. Let's see. I am not on mute. Liz, can you speak? Liz, it says you're connected, but your microphone is suddenly not coming in. I'm not sure why. Maybe jiggle your microphone. It says your Bluetooth AirPods are on though. So that's strange. Okay. Let me try my settings. Try my microphone. Rejigger that.
Figure that.
Okay.
How about this? Can you hear me now?
I do hear you now.
I do hear you now.
You're going to echo
You're
for
going
one
to
second.
echo for 1 second, but we're going to figure this out.
Okay.
Okay.
You're coming out of my...
Sarah, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Sarah?
Now I hear you. All right.
All right.
I think we're good
I think we're good again. Let me just check.
Okay.
Okay.
You're echoing,
but we're going to get through the end of the show. And Steve's going to edit out the middle of this.
Okay.
Okay.
Sarah is hearing
Liz.
No, not hearing Liz.
Not hearing Liz.
But I hear Liz now.
I hear Liz now.
Go ahead, Liz.
Go ahead, Liz. Go again.
I do hear you.
I do hear you. Okay. What was the last question?
Oh, what was that?
What was that?
Liz, just
check
your
mic.
I see you came back on.
Okay.
Sarah, do you hear? Okay.
Okay.
All right, we're good.
We're good.
Liz, to you for your takeaways.
Okay, yes. Here's the takeaway. Retail is going through a major transformation, and I think it's a good thing. You know, the mall was not working for us for a long time, and I think the pandemic is going to cause that to accelerate. And I think the mall is going to not survive this pandemic, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The key here is that there are lots of jobs that are going to be lost when that happens, and I think it's really crucial for companies to realize how important retail workers are. And as they shift their retail strategy and have more neighborhood type stores, it's crucial for them to hire, experienced people and then pay them really well so that the customer has a great experience in those stores.
That is so well said. And I think that's going to be one of the new realizations as we move out of the pandemic, is that these are frontline workers, these are essential workers, and that the right salesperson and the right staffing and the right decisions made by that staff can be the driver of in-store retail brick and mortar traffic. So I think that's a great point. And as it goes to the bookstores, I mean, the truth is nothing they've tried before has really worked well. So this is really possibly the last pushback to Amazon. The biggest challenge, of course, finding those staffers. So again, the local stores need to find the right staffers because the right choices were not coming from headquarters, and they need to make this work, or they're not. I mean, they really have to make the big stores, I guess, like a Barnes & Noble, need to act like local stores, which is ironic because for years, the local stores needed to act more like the big stores.
Right. I think we're going to a moment where people really care about their community and they want to live, close to where their stores are. They don't want to have to drive an hour away to go to the mall. They want the store to be part of their everyday life as they go get their coffee, they go to the grocery store. They want to be able to stop by their bookstore and their makeup store, right? This is the future.
Yeah, I think that's so well said. As for the future, you'll be back in another 4 weeks for your final couple shows with us as a Money with Friends co-host. Tell us what you're going to be up to and where people can stay in touch with you.
I'm so excited about the next month. There's going to be a lot of time at home in my pajamas, relaxing and preparing for the new year. But if you would love to read any of my stories, you can find me at Liz Segran on all the socials, Twitter and Instagram. And I have a column at Fast Company magazine. And you can find my book, The Rocket Years, How Your 20s Launch the Rest of Your Life, at your local bookstore.
Yes. And by the way, the Rocket Years is on the Financial Grown Up, my other podcast. It is on our recommended holiday reading list. So everyone, please listen to that episode of Financial Grown Up. And if you have not already, pick up Liz's book. It is a great book to read over the holidays, even if you're not in your 20s. And it's also a great holiday gift. So I would highly suggest that, and buy local if you can. And we understand if you don't, all sales are good. But if you can buy local, that's a bonus point. Bonus points for you. Liz, thank you so much as always for being part of this. Thank you for putting up with all of our technical glitches. We look forward to seeing you back here in a few weeks. And everyone, learn more about Liz and all of our amazing co-hosts and collaborators on our website, moneywithfriendspodcast.com. Please follow us on Instagram at moneyfriendspod. That is also our handle on Twitter. And of course, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Just search for Money with Friends on YouTube. Subscribe, set the alerts, and you can be part of the show as well. Oh, you know what? I did forget. We did ask our audience, where do you learn about new books? And you know what? They really said, most of them said podcasts. So there you go. That was the response. So stay close to Instagram so you can be part of those as well. Thanks, everyone. We will see you. Joe will be back tomorrow, I should say, with Farnoosh Sharabi. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye. Take care.
Okay. So now let me just save this. I think the audio recording will actually be great. The audio backup, I'm not sure if we had an echo on Restream, so we will see. But the audio backup, I think we can just cut out that middle part of the second episode where things kind of went haywire. I'm not sure what happened. I think that this, I went, for those of you that were with us at the beginning, I had my remote headphones died, and I grabbed this like free giveaway, just plug in pair just to get going. And I think this pair went kaput as well. There you go. Technology. And then, of course, we reenacted our first show by saying that we were on, you're on mute. So go figure. All right. But thanks, everyone. And Joe will be back recording on Wednesday, I believe, late morning. So make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel and you will get an alert and you can join Joe and Farnoosh. Bye, everyone.
Bye.